Welcome to this bite-sized best practice video on safeguarding and DBS checks. The aim of this video is to raise awareness of the importance of safeguarding children and vulnerable adults at risk of neglect or abuse, to become familiar with types of abuse, to know what to do if you encounter a safeguarding issue, and to understand what a DBS check is and when you should have one. So let's start with a simple question. What is abuse? And the answer is that it's the violation of an individual's human and civil rights by another person or organisation. It's important to understand that this may be a single or a repeated act. So who are we safeguarding? Children. And we are protecting children from maltreatment, preventing impairment of children's health or development, ensuring that children grow up in circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care, and taking action to enable all children to have the best outcomes. And with vulnerable adults, it's important to understand that vulnerable adults may or may not be in need of community care services because of mental or other disability, age or illness, and they may be unable to take care of themselves or unable to protect themselves against significant harm or exploitation. It's important that if we don't know if an adult is vulnerable, we treat them as though they are. In a short video like this, we can't go into great detail about the different kinds of abuse and signs of all of those. But it's important that you know what the types of abuse are. And they are psychological or emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial or material abuse, neglect or self-neglect, discriminatory abuse, domestic abuse, organisational or institutional abuse, modern-day slavery, or prevent, which is around radicalisation. We're not going into detail on all of these different types of abuse, but it's important to understand that the common reactions of victims of abuse may be very similar. So if you see someone who is behaving differently or showing signs of fear in the presence of certain individuals, or perhaps if they seem frightened or depressed unusually, and they seem to have a sense of hopelessness, it's possible that they have been victims of abuse. So some points to remember. Abuse is often, but not always, a crime. It can be perpetrated by anyone, anywhere, family or friends, paid staff, volunteers, and in any setting. And there is often more than one type of abuse in any situation. And lastly, it's really important to understand that abuse is not always intentional. It can often be a result of well-meaning ignorance. So what do you do if someone discloses to you about abuse? The most important thing to do is to listen. Talk as little as possible. It's their opportunity to talk to you. Please do stay calm. They need that from you. Record, preferably in writing, what you have been told in their own words, and do this as soon as possible after the disclosure. It's really important not to ask leading questions and don't promise confidentiality. You may need to report this to somebody else. When do I report it? So if you have received a disclosure of abuse, or you suspect that abuse or neglect is happening, or you witness abuse or neglect, it is important that you report it. Who do you report abuse to? Firstly, and most importantly, if someone is in immediate risk, always contact the emergency services on 999. If there's no immediate risk, you can contact the police either on their online form or on their non-urgent number 101. You can also contact your local authority, who will also have a safeguarding officer. And lastly, it may be that at your workplace, there is a safeguarding officer, in which case you can report to them as well. So let's move on to DBS checks. DBS checks are run by the Disclosure and Barring Service. They can be run on an individual if they work or are volunteering with an organisation. It's important to understand that they must be working with or volunteering with children or vulnerable adults. In a DBS check, the criminal record of someone is checked to make sure they are not banned or barred from this role, and that they are appropriate for this particular position. There are different levels of check, from basic to enhanced. There is a fee for this check, and mostly an employer, and quite often a voluntary service, if you're volunteering, will cover the cost of this. We do recommend that anyone working with or volunteering with children or vulnerable adults should have a DBS check. And it's important to understand that this is a protection for those children and those vulnerable adults, but it's also a protection for the staff member or the volunteer. So, thank you for watching this bite-sized best practice session from MVA. If you'd like some further information or support on this topic, please contact info@mva.org.uk. You can also check our website for further guides and resources, www.mva.org.uk. And we have other things to look at on our social media. Do have a look. Thanks for watching. We hope it's been useful to you.